Well, that it's really important to have high quality services and where recovery is the expected outcome of treatment. That is really, really important. And that there are different paths to recovery, and that people have their aha moment or are open to treatment or medication at various times of their lives. And I think it's really important for policymakers and providers, clinicians to understand that. The other thing I think is important is for providers and policymakers to understand that it's the enhanced services that make the difference. That not having to wait on a waiting list for housing, or not having to wait for an appointment to go to the psychiatrist or the therapist, of jumping to the head of the line as opposed to being the last is really important. Often when folks make a decision, and I know for myself, when I made a decision to go to the hospital, I had been probably ill at home for about a month, and I had an aha moment. And I went to the hospital. It was a private hospital, but I went to the hospital. And if someone had said, LaVerne, come back in a week or even come back tomorrow, probably the cycle would have lasted a lot longer. So I think that that's really important. I also feel that it's important for policymakers and providers to understand that, notwithstanding that they have to harmonize the forced aspects of assisted outpatient treatment with what we know is really fundamental and important to the human spirit: choice, having a say in kind of your future, being optimistic about that future, really being able to collaborate effectively with your clinicians and your treatment providers, and most importantly, for those folks who are part of your life to really believe that you can recover. And ultimately, an independent life in the community with a job or some other form of meaningful and gainful meaningful work or engagement, having a salary or entitlements, whatever works for the particular person, having the social connections, the friends, the natural supports, that those are really critical once a person may leave that AOT program, assisted outpatient treatment program. Assisted outpatient treatment can never be viewed as a long-term solution to the prevalence of mental illness in our communities and the lack of high quality services. It's not the solution. And so it's my hope that policymakers will, as a result of the evaluations, will gain information as to treatment and what about certain approaches to treatment are not effective. What kinds of treatment are effective? What kinds of alliances between providers and family members and individuals, experiencing a crisis? What works? And finally, that hospitalization, long-term or short-term, also is not a solution. Often, you really want parents and people suffering from mental illness to have resources in the community before those crises hit. So we really want to catch folks as early as possible, and for family members to get the support that they need as early as possible to avoid hospitalization, assisted outpatient treatment, or other kinds of situations where because AOT families have lack of a choice too. I have no choice in my son's treatment because he didn't, we have no consent, which is fine. And so I think it's really important for everyone to really understand how it's really not the answer, and to commit time, energy, and resources long term to treatment in the community. Because the bottom line is, when people like me and my son, end up either in a hospital or isolated in the community, the bottom line is the community suffers from our lack of participation. We have assets, talents, and other things that our communities need. And when we're absent, or we're not present, or we're estranged from those things, the communities suffer. The most important thing I want makers to know is that it's important that everything be focused on healing, both on the family side and the consumer side, but most importantly is to move towards the future, and to have families have all the resources and consumers that folks really need to stay well, and all the incentives that we all need to stay healthy, to motivate us even during those times of despair. Everyone needs that, because diagnosed or undiagnosed, I look at it, everyone's got a challenge. And the difference is some people have resources to emerge relatively unscathed from some challenges, and for other people, those challenges define the trajectory of their life, and that does not have to happen.